I'm a big believer in diversifying your career the way you diversify any of your financial assets, because at the end of the day, we're talking about the income streams, and they are the things that allow you to grow your wealth. We've had over 20 countries take our audit. We've not paid anything on marketing. I'm just so blown away.
I was looking at some data. Fractional leadership is a category in the UK, or broader Europe is 6 billion. AI is impacting that in terms of future of work.
They're like, oh, jack of all trades. They're doing all these things. They can't possibly do any of them really well. And I beg to differ. I say that actually it is possible, but you do it with intentionalities.
I'd love to hear about that journey from becoming a movement to this becoming a fully fledged company.
I have no money to give any developers, so it's me and Claude.
Today, we're going to talk about portfolio careers, the new normal where one job title or one income stream just isn't enough. There's no playbook for that yet, and one person decided to invent one. Quick thing before we start though, this isn't going to be about June's bio. It's about the idea that she's building on. When everyone's juggling multiple things, what does it take to do well with a portfolio career? And more importantly, what does it take to build a tool to enable this?
There are people who have done this and people who haven't done it. I can tell you that June is categorically in the bucket of done it before. She lives this portfolio method in real life. She's the venture partner at Samus Investments. She founded Levari Ventures. She's on multiple boards. She's an angel. She founded Moms in Tech. We're going to hear all about it. So she is living the portfolio method, is the best person to speak with us about this.
And the really interesting part is how she vibe coded this initially. Within a matter of days, but we're going to hear more from June herself. She built what was needed because it didn't exist. And now other people are saying, thank God she has done this. I thought I was broken. So, June, welcome.
Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for
Hi.
having me. It's such a pleasure to be with you today.
No, the
Super
pleasure is
excited.
absolutely ours.
So, June, tell us a bit more about that moment. When did you realize that portfolio careers needed an operating system?
Yes, and I'm going to tell you the story about how all of this happened, because typical June story, all by accident. So, in January, I was asked to do a workshop with another lady, part of this group called the Wits End. But we were meant to do the workshop together. She had all the slides, and I was kind of going to be her sidekick. And then on the morning of, unfortunately, her child was sick, so she wasn't able to attend. And I suddenly found myself being asked to run this session alone. And of course, I had no slides. And it's very different when it's someone else's slides. You can only leverage so much. So I turn up, I get into my little corner where they put us, and I'm hoping that only 5 people will turn up. And lo and behold, I have 25 incredible women, some of them from amazing corporates, but I was incredibly intimidated, thinking, what am I going to share with them that they don't already know? I decided to embrace the fear and just do it anyway, as we often do. I just took it as a learning experience and was going to just kind of freestyle it. So the slides are there, but when it's not yours, you can't really use it the same way. So what I did was I approached it as we'll kind of get to learn about each other. And what started unraveling was these 3 themes around a lot of people had begun to think about portfolio careers. Some of them had even started compiling one, but they'd all done it in a way where they were feeling incredibly burnt out. They were all feeling like they were just leaving money on the table. So they've been pulled into trustee roles, they've been put into unpaid board roles. And they were just like, is this it? Is this how we do things as a portfolio careerist? And I was thinking, it doesn't have to be that way. I feel there's another way. So I started kind of in my mind, the cog started turning, but I didn't know yet what that was going to be. All I knew is I had to get through this hour where I had to hopefully impart some knowledge to these incredible women. But anyway, the next day I posted on LinkedIn, as I often do, and I had people reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, can you do this again? I heard it was amazing. A lot of people were like, they learned so much. And I'm thinking, it was by accident. None of this was planned. And I said to one of the women, I said, look, if you get me 10 people, I'll do it again. So I quickly put a Google form together, and I gave it to her. I said, look, go, thinking that she would fail. Honestly, I thought there would be 0 responses. She came back in 2 days with 15 women. I said, oh man, now I got to do this. And still no plan as such. But then I got an email a couple of days later from Huckletree, and one of their ambassadors and members, and they said they're opening a new space and they need someone to test it out. Is anybody interested? And I don't know what possessed me, but I quickly hit that reply button. I said yes. And I said, oh boy, what have I done? I say to myself, maybe this is a sign. And I'm a big fan of listening to signs. Maria and Yvonne, you know me. I'm one of those people who are very intentional, and I always look for meaning in everything that happens. And I think everything happens for a reason. The fact that I saw that email in
Yeah.
the flood of emails that is in my inbox, it felt like it meant something. So I set myself a challenge. They had 3 weeks within which it had to happen. So it wasn't a lot of time. So I very quickly went to see the site. I was also very intimidated because it was a massive room. And I said, okay, well, what are we going to do here? And I thought, well, it'd be nice to get portfolio career professionals in a room together. So I decided, let's do a workshop. And of course, in June style, let's make this very hard. We'll do it for 3 hours. I've never run a workshop before. But then I decided to use it as a testing ground. Let's go figure out, okay, what is this money method that I seem to have coined in my head? What's the visibility method? And what is the energy method? And let's design a workshop and activities for these incredible portfolio careerists to do, and let's see what comes out of it. No pressure, let's just see. So registered the name Portfolio Method, set up a Luma account, and just started sharing. And I think maybe one thing to flag is that it wasn't easy. I think people assume you put out an event, everyone signs up. No, I had to hustle. I had to hustle. I really had to put myself out there. And you talked about me wearing lots of hats. So yeah, I'm a VC. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, how's this going to look? I'm like, I'm going to have to be June, the portfolio method, if I want to promote this event. So I really had to sit with myself and say, this is where we practice what I preach. I have to be comfortable showing up as a founder, even
Mm.
though I have my VC hat. How do I navigate that in the public sphere, as it were? And I started on Instagram where it's a little bit safer. And I'm like, okay, my work colleagues aren't there, but it felt like a safer space to kind of experiment. So we set up the account and started spreading the word. And then I had to lean in on people. I'm like, please share with your friends and everyone you know. And I think it's important people talk about this
Mm.
because I think there's this assumption that magically everything comes together. There were moments where I thought nobody would turn up. There were moments where I thought we'd have to give it all away for free. And I think I had to have this mentality of there's no room for failure.
Mm.
Like this is going to happen. And you have to decide because I think if you go in with an escape route, then you don't fully commit. And I had to be like, okay, we're doing this. I decided I wanted to do this and we're all in. And I think this is where the vulnerability really came in, asking for help, kind of doing all the promotions, all the hacky things that don't scale in the beginning. I had to try all of those things. And this is where I really saw the acts of kindness, community leaders like
Mm.
really sharing on their WhatsApp groups, on their LinkedIn newsletters. They don't have to, but being aware of like where the cross pollination was a natural fit was really helpful in these scenarios. And just going outright and saying, I don't want to fail, so can you help
Mm.
me? So it was a good learning curve. And for someone who invests in people very early on in the journey, it was nice to see the community kind of investing in me, as it were.
I love it. One of the things that I think about when I hear the portfolio method is the vulnerability of showing up as this many different parts of yourself. I really relate with this because I was an operator before I became an investor. I did computer science undergrad. I'm also a chartered accountant. I've always navigated spaces in the world where I'm not one thing. And I know that there's this tension for people to put you in a box. And also, there's this underlying, are you even serious if you're doing all these many
Yes.
different things? And I always hated that. I would love to first talk a little bit about what is the portfolio method. If you were to explain to someone who is in that space of navigating these different parts of their skill sets, of their abilities, what is that? And where, in your experience, having lived the portfolio method, have you faced the tension of accepting this different parts of yourself and being visible with all of them at once?
Yeah, really good question. And as someone who's 12 weeks into the journey, it's something that we're really trying to make sure that we talk about very clearly. I think it's very easy for me to say the portfolio method is an operating system for people with portfolio careers, but what does that really mean? And I think this is where I'm very conscious of dropping the tech talk, as it were, and just make sure we relate to people on a very human level. And I think at its core, what we are trying to do is help people understand how to show up, how to grow and manage their portfolio careers in a way that is backed by data that is personal to them. And I think that's what's been missing from the ecosystem. There's a lot of career blogs, there's a lot of content creators that have been talking about portfolio careers are not new. And I think that's something to really say. There's a ton of content you can find online, whether it's LinkedIn or an Instagram or YouTube. They're all doing incredible work, but there's nobody that's really thinking about the infrastructure. And that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to build the decision making engine because at its core, portfolio careerists are very time poor. They want to do lots of things and they have been shrouded with this shame, unfortunately, because as you say, people think of you as unserious. They're like, oh, jack of all trades. They're doing all these things. They can't possibly do any of them really well. And I beg to differ. I say that actually it is possible, but you do it with intentionality. So people who are feeling a little bit flustered, a little bit overwhelmed by the vast amount of things that they've taken on, we're saying to them actually, look, this is infrastructure that we've built to help you figure out how to construct your portfolio stack. At the end of the day, there are people who just added things for the sake of it. There was no real rhyme or reason as to why they should be there. Somebody may have said, oh, join this as a trustee because it sounds great. Maybe it's BAFTA. But guess what? Maybe BAFTA is not paying them a penny, but BAFTA is taking hours of their time. So we're saying, let us review what you've got on the table and let's help you figure out what to remove, what to optimize, and what actually you need to be thinking about growing. So there's a lot of roles that we think should just come off the plate because it's taking so much of your energy, but you won't be able to know that without the data. So we also have this benchmarking tool that we're building that will allow people to understand if they're charging the right amount based on the data that we're collecting around their peers around the world. And we're effectively calling that the glass door for portfolio careers. But we're collecting that data now just so that we have a really good basis to help people understand what they should be charging for different things and then use that information to decide what roles to say yes to, what to say no to, but ultimately, what are the things that you're doing that will compound? And compounding is the word that we use very intentionally because you don't want to be having 8 or 9 different things. You only have so many hours in the day. We all think we're superwoman, but I think we have to be realistic and work with our energy level. So we want this to be tailored to you. So you would have a different one to Yvonne. And I think it's very important that we accept and recognize that we're all unique. And I think this is what the system ultimately wants to do is to give you the data to make better decisions at the right time.
In terms of navigating the vulnerability of showing up with these different sides of yourself without necessarily being seen as doing too many things, what has worked for you? What do you tell people using the portfolio method? A mental model, a way to think about it and rise above that perception, which you've clearly said is false.
Yes, and I think it's also data. Something that we're building is an audit trail. And I think obviously the best environments are one where there's that trust built into the system from day one. And I think I've been very lucky, and I talk about this very often, that I started my role at Samos, where I worked initially 3 days a week, now down to two. But I've never had to say, this is everything I'm doing. There's that trust built in. But if you are in a situation where you're new to the organization and you do need some level of transparency where you can show them what you're working on, the tool will be able to do because you can plug it into the different places you work. So you'd have an automatic audit where you could show that at the end of the day. But on a very practical level, I'm constantly thinking about how do I show up authentically in each role that I'm doing? And I have these container days I talk about. So on a Wednesday and a Thursday, it's a Samos day. So I am dedicated to Samos on those days. And I think by saying it out loud, by putting it in my calendar, everyone kind of knows where they stand and I'm not having to confuse people. So I've chosen to do it that way so that I can have that peace of mind. And I know my brain is in Samos mode. And then on the other days, if I'm in build mode, so on the app, you can set your days where you have your different identities. So on a Monday, I'm a founder. Maybe on a Tuesday, I'm looking after Lavare. And then maybe Friday could be for mentoring or for speaking. But I think having structure, as counterintuitive as it sounds, is what has allowed me to do the things that I love in the way that I want to turn out.
That's really interesting. It actually answers one of the questions I had around how do you balance it all, wearing all these hats and being able to do it in a way where you're still able to deliver to your best of your ability. I love the fact that you've put together this event and made everything happen within the space of 3 weeks. I remember you doing the call out saying, come to this event. And it was so interesting because it resonated with so many people, right? And it's almost like you're reframing the
Yes.
whole connotation, perception around portfolio careers. Because oftentimes, when you think about portfolio careers, historically, it's always been someone who's had their career, they're maybe like approaching their 50s and they're on their way to retirement and they're like, okay, I want to take a step back. But actually, this is the future of work. What I'm really interested in is the event came first before the product. You vibe coded this product, right? So I'd love to hear a bit about that journey from this being an event, becoming a movement, and then you vibe coding it to now this becoming like a fully fledged company.
Absolutely. And again, there's no one more surprised than me that it has really, that it has taken on so much momentum. Now I'm obsessed with data. I keep looking at our Tally dashboard, our Google Analytics, and I'm like, all these people landed on our page. And of course, we've not paid anything on marketing. And we've had over 20 countries take our audit. I'm just so humbled and so blown away. But it really, as you say, signaled to me that there's a need for this. There's a need for a reframe. Like, why should people be ashamed of choosing to live in a way that actually I say is the future? I think with AI, as you rightly pointed out, we're just going to work very differently. And I'm a big believer in diversifying your career the way you would diversify any of your financial assets, because at the end of the day, we're talking about the income streams, and they are the things that allow you to grow your wealth. The more you're able to have an anchor that kind of sorts out your day to day and then build around that. But yeah, back to your question, Yvonne, around how it moved from the in person event. I think I got so much energy out of that day. I look back and obviously, first of all, Huckletree, big shout out to them. But on that day, what happened was there was just this sense of, okay, June, what next? We're hungry for more. Now you've shown us what's possible. Now you've shown us the other, portfolio careerists like us. We don't want to lose this. So we set up a WhatsApp group and I started just asking more questions. And I think this is what you do in the early days. You ask and you ask and you ask, and you feel until you have a sense of, okay, what is the thing? What is the crux of all of this? What do people really want? So people are desperate for the right data. They want to ask for critical questions around negotiation, around the pricing. I was just observing within the group what people kept asking for. And then I did loads of customer interviews one to one, which I'm so grateful that they were all willing to give me time. And I thought, okay, let's get this website like up properly, because we had just been on Luma at that point. So, and again, I was like, I have no money to give any developers, so it's me and Claude. So, I just literally started playing around with the prompting at that point.
Had
I
you used
just
Claude before that, or was this
not
like your
much.
first? Okay.
No, this was really me saying, okay, we're doing this. Because at work, we'd started dabbling with Claude. Prior to that, I'd used GPT quite a lot, but it was becoming clearer and clearer that Claude was the go to. So I set myself up on Claude and started analyzing the data around the audit. I started thinking about what that audit report could look like in a digital format. What do we want to understand about these people? And I wanted to track their energy. I wanted to help them plan their week. So we started thinking about container days, but I also wanted it to be backed by real data. And behavioral psychology was something that I was very interested in, because I was conscious, and we talked about it in the workshop around attention residue and the context switching tax. These are very busy people. We don't want to add to the load. So daily check-ins on energy, because we collected the base information during the audit, and we wanted to understand, okay, what are the things that actually drain you on a weekly basis so that you can actually make an informed decision, and then also giving them the opportunity to share their wins. So very similar to the runner analogy. I followed the runner story, and they'd started with a very simple audit of how people were running, and then they had this community platform where people would share their wins. So I'm like, what are people going to be willing to share about their salaries or their careers? And surprisingly, people are using it. They've been sharing the things that went well for them in the day. I think people just want to know what are the different systems and methods. So the same way people are always asking me how I manage to do it all, people want to know what others are doing and
Yeah.
compare and figure out what are the bits that they can take. So I vibe coded, I did the website, and then I used Claude to tell me what to do on Lovable. So I'm like, Claude, you guide me. Let's do this together. You got all my analytics, but let's build something that is actually backed by the data that we have already. So I tried to keep it super simple. We have a small beta group, and they just started testing the app for me, and then we'd have like regular check-ins. I set up accountability groups so that people have a buddy, and I think that's what's generally missing in a lot of apps. You kind of need an accountability partner, and we found that has been critical in actually moving people forward, because you know that someone's checking in, and we use a little bit of machine learning to understand who are the right people to match them with. And that's been really special to kind of understand, like that's part of the unlock. 12 weeks in, we've got the app going, getting lots of interesting data from the MVP. We also started a newsletter which has grown to over 900 people on LinkedIn in a very short space of time. We've got a really high open rate, but people are responding and they're telling us it's sort of like this aha moment, and it's I'm not alone in this, so thank you. So I think these are the little signs that have given me comfort that we're doing something super interesting. And then back to signs, I had an engineer who had worked with us during Mums in Tech, and he'd been one of the teachers, and he happened to be available. And he reached out, and he's now building our app on iOS. So it's literally been a nice full circle moment. The app will be live soon. We've got an incredible designer working on it. So, yeah, it's been a journey, and it's all happening fast, but I'm so excited. I'm so grateful.
Love that. Now, just something I wanted to unpick there. So you vibe coded the website, the audit, but you just chose to bring in a developer to
Yes.
actually build the iOS app, despite the fact that there's all this vibe coding hype at the moment around like developing apps and so on. Talk to us why you chose to take that approach versus vibe coding it yourself.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And oh boy, the number of bugs I have had to unpick. Oh, I don't wish it on anyone. It was not pleasant, because I think what people don't talk about enough. Yes, you can get the app up and running, but maintaining every single time you go in and you change something, something breaks. And yes, the apps obviously have these security checks that you can do automatically, but you don't know what you don't know. If I haven't studied engineering, there's a lot of things that I wouldn't necessarily have known to add into the foundation that will set me up for success. And as we scale, so the more people that were coming onto the app, it was like it was falling apart. And the customer experience is very important to me. I think there's nothing worse than hearing, oh, I didn't get the magic link, or I wasn't able to log in, I couldn't find the button, and I'm aware of my limitations. So I think it's very important that founders also take a hard look at themselves and know where your limits. We got this far, we gathered data, but I think now it's important that we leverage that and build something that can actually get us to scale, rather than scrambling and trying to do a patchwork. Because yeah, I could patchwork it for a bit, but the customer won't have a fabulous experience, and I won't have a fabulous experience debugging at 11 o'clock at night, not even sure I'm doing it right.
We were actually having a conversation on the pod recently around this, about how AI has made it really easy for prototyping and it's perfect for that. But questioning whether or not that can scale, especially if you don't have the background to building products that scale. So really love the fact that you know what you don't know and you're bringing people into to doing that, but doing the exciting and incredible work
Yes.
of prototyping in the early stages. I wanted to transition a bit to something you had mentioned, your energy method. You talked about energy. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because I think we've talked about it before. But then also, I've experienced it. And when you were talking about the energy method, I was like, oh, so this is what it is mentally. So tell us a little bit about why that is a critical part of the portfolio method. For anybody who's listening, who's probably in that headspace, feels like this relates to them. What is the energy method and how do you use that in the context of managing your portfolio career?
The energy method, I think, for many people was something that, at least for portfolio professionals, it was really obvious, because the burnout was something I kept hearing time and time again. And I think at its core, it was overcommitting. A lot of people had overcommitted and were not matching the amount of hours that they were giving to certain tasks with the amount of compensation that they were getting, or even joy, at the very least. Joy. I think it's important to say that it's not always about the monetary value. How much joy are you actually getting from doing certain things? Because the way I construct my portfolio career is around an anchor, and then I can take things on accordingly. But with your anchor, at the very least, you know your mortgage is sorted, your bills are paid, you're not going to be homeless anytime soon, you're good. And then you can add maybe things that will teach you. So maybe you take a board role, but you have to make sure that's commensurate with what you're going to take home and how much time you're going to give away. And I think having a structure that you check in on how you're feeling. And it's just a simple proxy to understand, look, am I really feeling drained? Today I was doing an investor role and I just don't feel great. Log that. It's important to note the same way we track our steps, we track a lot of things these days, but we're not really tracking how it ties up to actually the things that we're spending majority of our day doing. You want to know so that you can make a better decision next time. So the energy method is a very quick check-in at the end of the day. Obviously, at the point where they do the audit, we're trying to understand the different roles that they have and how they feel about each of them, whether it drains them, whether it gives them energy. Actually, this one that is taking, I don't know, 2 hours of my day just ruins it for the rest of the week. Maybe that's then an indicator for you to think maybe that's something to remove going forward. And then we start helping you build that exit plan.
I love it. You've explained it so well. It's intuitive mentally, but many people don't know to do it.
That's
And I want to share why I think that point for anyone listening, it's really critical. I also actually think it's whether or not you have a portfolio career, but very important for people who have portfolio careers because I really relate with this on a visceral level. When I was doing my MBA, there was a book that I read, and the book was called Designing Your Life. I tell everyone about this book.
um,
And it talks a little bit about this energy method. In fact, I didn't even finish reading the entire book. I did some sessions and it was on this energy thing. And something it said was along the lines of see how you feel after a thing and then optimize for that. And I think in the last 5 years, I do many different things, but they all give me so much energy that it begins to compound. So it goes back to what you were saying on compounding. You see someone doing many different things and they seem to be doing it really well. And you're like, how is it feasible? It's like, how can you do
yes.
moms in tech? How can you do all these things? But you're doing all of it well. I think the energy method is actually quite a critical part of that. So optimizing for the things that give you energy without tracking it is very hard to know
I
because you think
agree.
you know till you see the data and you're like, whoa, actually talking to
Yes.
founders gives me a lot of energy. Actually, this doesn't give me energy. So yeah, I really the believing on that point.
100%. This is why I stay away from Excel spreadsheets because it doesn't give me energy. It's
Love
good
it.
to know what you
Yeah.
like, and it's back to owning it.
Hmm.
I think we need to own how many years do we have on this earth? We need to be
True.
very intentional. I think back to what really triggered all of this is perspective. I turned 40,
Mm,
there was loss in the family, and it really makes you reflect on look, do the things that you love, do it well, be intentional, make it make sense so that when you leave, you have this legacy. And that's really been my driving force. What do I want to be remembered for?
mm.
And it's created some urgency. It's do it now. And I'm not afraid to be the first to do something that's a little bit wacky, but why not? We'll make it a thing.
One thing I really love with the work that you're doing is that you're creating a framework for people that probably had no idea how to approach portfolio careers in terms of you mentioned that you have this base whereby that's covering your mortgage, ensuring that all bases are covered, and then you're adding on top of that. Now, I'm just so curious, where does this go from here? Because this started from an event and now it's become an app. What's your ambition for the portfolio method?
Oh, good question. And I think building in public is something that I feel like it's part of me. I think you'll know firsthand. Everything I do is very public, and
And
I'm
you do
happy
it
to
so well.
share.
You do.
I thank you. I try to share the lessons along the way, if it will inspire even one person to kind of chase their dreams. I try not to sugarcoat it and make it sound like it's all going
Mm.
perfectly. I try and be as real as possible. And I've never felt so energized. And I feel like we're really onto something. And I want to change the landscape for people who want to do more than one thing. I want them to be excited and to be proud to be portfolio careerists. More importantly, I want them to have the tools that they need to be able to do it well. So that's what we're really excited to be building. We are launching the iOS app in a couple of weeks, which is very exciting. I'm doing a little angel round now to put that together. And as an investor, having to go around with my cap, it's humbling, but it's really exciting to have brilliant people around supporting me, advising me. And I always say to people, it's not just about people putting money in you, it's all the other little things along the way, whether it's them checking your deck, making it sure it sounds proper and you've got all the points checked and your T's crossed and I's dotted, because it can be quite, when you've looked at something so much, you don't see everything. So I've been really grateful for all the support I've had, whether it's introductions to developers or customers or designers to help us as we build this out. It takes a village. I'm not trying to say I know it all, even though I've been an investor for 8 years now, which is crazy. There's so much to learn still. I think that really excites me. It's like it's day zero, always be learning. And that's always been a motto of mine. And I think this really gives me that opportunity to tune into that part of the brain that I've been dying to use. I built Moms in Tech back in 2015. It feels like such a different experience now. I feel so much more confident about my why. I'm more confident about what I know I can do. I know when to lean in. I'm not building alone. I'm building with my sister. I think it's been so special having her on board. She is the yin to my yang, and we're so different, but she balances me. She keeps me accountable. It's tough love, and I love that. So it's essential. And I think it's been nice to see other sibling founder dynamics in the founder space. Obviously, I keep asking them, how's it going? Tell me. Having those examples is really helpful to
Yeah.
recognize. I mean, who can you trust more than your sister?
It's always nice when I see sibling relationships. I actually think it's the best because you
It
already know
is.
how to fight and you know they're not
Literally.
wicked. You're like,
Mom, we'll solve it in a few
we'll
minutes.
solve it
And
tomorrow over dinner.
yeah, we're good. We're very
I
good at
love
making
it.
up.
I love it. I would love to talk about the future of work. I was looking at some data recently. Fractional leadership is becoming a category in and of itself. I think in the UK or maybe even broader Europe is 6 billion. AI is impacting that in terms of the future of work. People are what we consider work is structurally changing with the
Yes.
introduction of artificial intelligence, but then also how people are thinking about their careers in this crazy time means that there's an interesting opportunity. Would love to hear your thoughts on where you think this industry is going. What is in your head as to where we will land in terms of this fractional type of work? It used to be called the gig economy, but I think this is very different. It's almost
Yes.
this balancing of different paths. Where do you think we will land, especially with AI in the mix, say 5, 10 years out?
Yeah, and I think for me, the real aha moment was speaking to quite a few Gen Z. So many people assume, oh, this is just a C suite opportunity. Obviously, you build your operator career and then you're known for, I don't know, maybe you're the CMO and then you can get a bunch of fractional CMO roles. I think it's actually gone beyond that. So even those people who have chosen to work fractionally, they still want to try other things. So I know some incredible CMOs who are yoga teacher on the side, and they are setting up as an amazing lady who's like a dietitian and a yogi and a CMO of a massive company. And it's just been interesting just to see. It's like we want to pull on the other sides of our brain and leverage our different superpowers. So there's something around identity that people are trying to explore. And I think the fact is you're able to do your job super well now because we've got all these great tools. I think the mindset is slowly shifting. I think it'll be a lot easier for the younger people coming up who are choosing to do that from the get-go out of university, but they will need some role models at the top. I do think that they need to see people doing it well. We talk about women in tech all the time, women investors who are laying the foundation for them. And that's why I think this sort of visibility really matters. The way companies are structured is so different that people are not hiring in the same way, they're not progressing in the same way within organizations. So I think that is something that the young generation will have to reckon with, that the talent will not be perceived in the same way as before, and they need to figure out very quickly what they're good at and understand how they can monetize it. But I think portfolio career is forgiving in that it allows you to experiment. And that's something I'll always say about me. I'm happy to try stuff. And if it doesn't work, you remove it. And I think that spirit of entrepreneurship and just the mindset around at least give it a go. I think it's going to be really important for them to figure out what is actually going to take them longer down that path and help them get to the point where they're able to build sustainable careers out of the things that they actually love doing.
Yes, there's a point you've made there that strings on a line authenticity. When I think of the transition of talent, like the boomers, I hate to use these categories, but the boomers, the millennials, and the Gen Zs, one of the things with the Gen Zs is that I want to be true to who I am.
Yeah.
There's gradients of this thing sometimes. But I think the point here is we are transitioning, I think, to a world where who you are and what you do doesn't have to be two different things.
Yes.
You can find a world where you can bring yourself and all the different gradients and expressions of it into a world where that's where you earn income in a way that's diversified. I actually think that that's going to be more important now. In my own time, what I'm seeing with my friends is like people who are in their late 30s or early 40s, almost like there's a midlife crisis. I can't, I just need something that I actually love to do that gives me energy. I don't want to feel drained when I come back from work. I just want to be able to live as me and
Yes.
then also earn. So I think that's actually a thing that seems muted now, but it's going to become more and more important. What you're building is very much at the heart of it.
Oh, I think so. I think imagine a world where everyone actually does what they
Oh,
love
that would
and
be
it
so
makes
nice.
sense. Because I just think productivity goes up. It's better for the economy. There's so many ways it's a win-win. And I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of misconception around is that, oh, it could be fluffy. And it's no, these are
Mm.
people working on hard things. And I think we just want to showcase more of that.
Yeah, and just to echo that, one of the things I was curious about is the perception that having a portfolio career, it's almost like having multiple side hustles, but actually this is your main hustle, right? And it's
Exactly.
just reframing the entire narrative about it. So I love the movement that you've created as part
Yeah.
of the portfolio method. We're seeing all these job cuts across pretty much all industries and a lot of scaremongering about AI as well. The CEO of Anthropic was like, all these jobs are going to be cut. But actually, I think that with the portfolio method, there's real opportunity in that. As you set out to build this product, you mentioned that obviously a lot of Gen Zs are taking an interest, which doesn't surprise me at all, actually. I'm so curious how fundraising has been on you being on the other side now. Obviously, you're a venture investor, you've done over 5 years investing. What has that been like for you now being in the seat where you're actually raising the funding? And have you had any biases that you've had to unpick as a result of that? Talk to us about the journey fundraising now being on the other
Yeah.
side.
So for the angel investment round, I've been super intentional. Obviously, I'm a VC, and the expectation was that I would go and raise VC money. And obviously, I think if I reflect on now compared to 10 years ago when I was raising from Mums in Tech, I did not have the VC network. And even then, trying to raise from angels was very opaque. There weren't the angel syndicates that we have now. And I think that there was the one where you needed a co founder, so I was automatically disqualified from that. But one thing I would say is the beauty of raising now is obviously having VCs who are friends and who can guide me. And one of the echoing advice that came from a lot of my VC friends was do not raise VC money for this particular business. And I think it's important to say that there's so much glamour that
Mm,
tends to be associated with raising big VC rounds, being able to be the headlines for Sifted or for TechCrunch. And you really have to sit with yourself and say, is this the right type of capital for me and for my business right now?
mm,
Given the sort of metrics that we want to get to, the ownership style that we anticipate having, because I think once you get VC money, you're getting a board, you're getting a higher level of dilution that you might be comfortable with, but also you're suddenly put on this very hyperscale track, which doesn't suit every type of business.
mm,
And I think getting to grips with that in my head was a journey in itself because I was like, oh, that kind of sounded nice, but
mm.
let's be honest
Yeah.
about where we are and what is needed for right now. And I think being able to take feedback has been really, yeah, it's been important to me. I think I'm good at taking feedback in general,
I
but I think I
I
listen, Maria. I listen.
it's such a special thing because you're so experienced. So it's not out of experience. You have
Yeah.
these experiences both firsthand as an entrepreneur
Yes.
and as an investor, but when you are open to hearing what other people think, it's such a gift. Yeah.
Yeah, I try. And I think I always go back to when the moments where I've given advice to founders and how important it is to know that they at least have considered it. So
Yeah.
I try. And obviously there's good and there's bad advice. So I think people have to have the willpower to say, actually, I really believe this is the thing that I want to push back on. And these are my reasons. And I have so much respect for founders who like will
Mm,
disagree with me, but have a reason why,
yeah.
whether it's through their data, through the experience, because again, I don't know everything. And neither does investors who've chosen to come on the
Yeah.
journey. They will also be respecting my journey as a portfolio career, is the lessons that I've learned along the way and that's why they're choosing to back me. So if I'm back to your question around round, not raising loads, and I think that's also part of the advice I was given, really focus on revenue. One investor told me as well that she felt she'd given a founder that's quite early in the journey too much, and they lost that hunger. And I think you kind of want to stay a little bit hungry.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't have that sort of reason
Drive.
to, yeah, you need to kind of hustle. And if I had 5 million sitting in the account, it's, oh, we'll just take our time.
Yeah.
And I'm actually quite grateful for that advice because it changes the mindset. Look, let's focus on getting to revenue. Let's do the things that will get us there. Let's not just keep throwing away money at engineering and marketing and hope that the customers come. Let's really make sure we're building something that is meaningful because every pound counts.
And also, you still have the optionality. If you
Yes.
ever get to the point where you feel like you want to raise VC, you can.
Never say never, but in the
Yeah.
meantime, we do it with intention. You know, your angels can be your customers.
Yep.
And I think that's been really nice to see people who have taken the portfolio method workshop, customers of the app, they're investing. It's been so powerful to be able to lean on my community. And I use that word very intentionally because they're the people who know me, who know that I have lived this for the last 11 years, and they can see a fire in my belly. I think the very first person who invested, I think she was like, June, this is the happiest and most aligned I've seen you in a very long time. And I really took that to heart because I was like, okay, you know me. And I love you for saying that.
Before we wrap up, one thing that we love to do is a rapid fire. So it's going to be a very quick one, short answers, one sentence only. So let's dive into it. All right. So, first question. The first test of a real portfolio career, is it intentional or accidental?
Oh, I think a lot of times it's accidental.
Second one, who is your all-star portfolio careerist aside yourself? Who is someone you love the way they've arranged their portfolio career as well?
Yeah, I always say Reid Hoffman. I've yet to meet him, but I think he has a brilliant portfolio career. Obviously, he's an investor. He built LinkedIn. He also writes a lot of blogs and he has a podcast. I'm like, how do you do it all? I want to know his method. So I'd love to meet or chat to him at some point. Maybe get him to invest.
Reid.
Reid, are you listening?
And
Thumbs
he's a
up.
big advocate. At numerous occasions, I've heard him say that no one will have one job in the future.
Yeah,
So,
he would be like the dream angel investor
yeah.
in this. So who knows, one day.
The person who needs the portfolio method the most is
People who are doing 8 jobs, please come my way.
amazing. Love that. Thank you, June.
Thank you, June. This was amazing. Thank you
Thank
for gracing
you.
us with your presence. This was fun. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah,
Same. This is probably my favorite one.
we started this conversation by saying there's no playbook for portfolios careers yet. And I think that it's interesting what you're doing is not just creating the tools, the frameworks, but you're actually creating a category. And you've built this tool for people to use, and super excited to see what comes out of it over the next 12 months.
So much. Let's
Final
go. Let's
thing.
build.
Final thing, June, where can people find the portfolio method? Very quickly, shout out
Yes.
what they should do.
Absolutely. Please follow us on Instagram, on LinkedIn at The Portfolio Method, and we'll look out for the app. Join the wait list.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of The Startup Leap. Leave a review, tell us what you think of this episode on all our platforms at The Startup Leap Pod. Do you have a question? Ask us and we'll ask our guest. Go to thestartupleap.io. See you next time.